Hello, afternoon. All right, so coming back to the content is on product services design. Again, we have some of the notes here, and then we also have the slides as well. Okay, so today's content is on the product and services design. So previously we talked about forecasting. If you look back on the previous chapters, we looked at introduction to operations management. We looked at what's this? Okay, look at the strategies, got the competitiveness and the productivity. Right? Then last session, we talked about forecast. Okay, so this session here is to look at the designing of your product and your services. So what are the considerations? And then how do we go into designing the product? All right, so now in terms of production, before we even start to produce, what are the things to actually consider? Okay, or what are the things that we will take note of before we actually begin to produce? Okay, so if you think about it, right, whether let's say from the consumer side, okay, whatever you buy, let's say for a physical product, a tangible product, right, and then let's say for a service as well. So for both kinds of items, the things that consumers consider will usually be considerations or factors such as like the prices. Is this cheap? Is this within my budget? Can I afford it? The other thing will be in terms of your quality. So essentially, it's just a cost benefit analysis, right? How much are you spending in terms of the price? And then what are the benefits that you can get? Is the quality high, etc. Okay. From the firm's perspective, right, we will argue that there are actually potentially more things to consider. From the different departments' point of view, let's say from the operations side, right? We were thinking whether we have the capability to actually produce them. So let's say if we talk about the example of producing using the Alibaba website, right? So as a firm, for example, I will contact the suppliers in Alibaba, and then I will need to ask them how many units they can produce, and then any things that I want to modify, or let's say I want to adjust certain things, are they actually able to do it? So for some of the suppliers, they can. So they have the equipments, the machineries, the factories, they're able to customize, let's say, the colors, the designs, right? Put in your logo and so on. But let's say now I am producing shoes. I want to change the design quite radically, quite drastically. So things like changing the color of the whole shoes, or let's say adding in my new design. I want to change the shoelace, right? I want to add in, let's say, some of the shoes, if you see, like they have a very big bottom, right? The soles are very big. Or let's say they add in the little studs at the side. So are we able to do all this in the factory? Okay, so that's one consideration, because if you cannot do, then the designing stage will have to factor in. Don't include all these designs because the firm cannot even produce. So on the production side, there are these constraints. Also things like, do we have enough manpower? If you don't have enough manpower, then we are unable to produce, unable to fulfill the requirements of, let's say, the business. So that the supplier will tell us. So this is on one side, right? The operations. Then on the other side, things like the marketing side. Is there a demand for the product? For example, let's say going back to a straightforward case, right? Nowadays, people wouldn't buy iPhone 3 unless you just need a simple phone, right? Let's say I want to get for my kid the first phone, then I probably wouldn't buy a very high-end expensive one because they are probably going to drop it, lose it, right? It's going to get damaged, right? So there's no point buying the latest phone and then 3 weeks later you have to replace another one. So you may buy an iPhone 3, but in other than these cases, right, probably you're going to look at the latest model. Okay, so then in that case, would the people actually want iPhone 3? Not really, right? So they don't want something that is outdated. They don't want something that is not fitting their requirements. So is there demand for your products or not? Okay, let me come to the slide. So in terms of the strategy, right, in terms of the design strategy, okay, this is what we're looking at, okay? So we talked about things like the operations. For the firms, are they able to produce, right? Let's say you're using a supplier, can they fulfill your needs? Then also looking at whether the consumers actually want these items that you produce. So we are thinking of producing, let's say, a stationery box, or let's say a pen holder. Then we ask ourselves, are people still using physical pens nowadays, or are they just typing on the laptop? Right? So these are considerations that we also have to think about. Then if we look at other points, things like the cost, right? If we are sourcing from China versus, let's say, sourcing from other countries like Vietnam, Mexico, right? Would the cost be different? Because if you consider that for, let's say, from the Chinese manufacturers, right? they could be subjected to the tariffs that the US consume that the US. So a few years ago, if you look at the US-China trade war, right, the previous president Donald Trump actually mentioned that he was unhappy with how US has a trade deficit with China. So China wasn't buying as much from US. It was selling a lot to US. So as a result, US consumers, right, they were paying a lot more than what the firms were earning. So the government wasn't happy, they imposed the taxes. So if we produce in US, in China now, and we sell to US, right, what would the new cost be? Would it be subjected to the tariffs, the taxes? So we also have to consider cost as a element, as a factor. Then things like, let's say, your competitive advantage, right? So in chapter 2, we looked at the strategies, we looked at how to remain competitive. It can be through things like your pricing. So we can offer discounts that no other firms can, right? Like value dollar shop. Value dollar shop can give very low prices for all the products, right? 50 cents for a bar of chocolate, $1 for a bottle of shampoo. How many firms can you find that can offer such prices? So their pricing, their cost is their competitive advantage. On the other hand, right, we talked about the expensive haircut, right? If you remember. So in that case, their competitive advantage was more in terms of the quality. So the celebrity hairstylist has a branding. He is able to, or he did service, let's say, royalty, celebrities, right? Mega stars. So with that, his branding has improved, has is been elevated. So when people actually want to, let's say, use his services, right? They want to get him to do a haircut for them, he's able to charge a very high price because his quality is high, right? So where is the firm's competitive advantage? So just to sum up, right? So for this portion, we are looking at the designing of a product or service. So before we get on to the manufacturing, we have to think, right, in terms of your product, what are the points that can help you to stand out from other competitors? And also your own, right, even without comparing, what are our concerns regarding the cost, the quality, right, in terms of what customers want? All these have to be thought through before we actually look at producing. Okay, so this is the pre-production stage. So here also we look at different other factors. So the explanation is here. Okay, so for this slides, this particular slide 6, the explanations are here. Okay, so we look at things, we split into different categories, right? So we have economic, social, political, competitive, cost, technological. This will correspond with the points here. Okay, so this is how we can study during the revision for your quiz. Quiz, this is not tested, okay, for your exam. So for example, let's say we look at economic. So it says things like low demand, excessive warranty claims, the need to reduce the cost. So we are designing products, for example, and now in this current climate, right? Let's say it's during COVID. COVID, we faced high unemployment. We face many people losing jobs, right? People getting a pay freeze. Economy is not doing well. So in that scenario, right, when we are producing or when we're designing a product, do we want to create something that is too expensive, right? Are we trying to sell to everyone? And right now, because their concern is the lower cost, something cheap, are we still able to service them? Okay, so if it's not, then probably we wouldn't want to pursue something so high quality. Second thing, let's say in terms of the social, the demographic, we look at the population shifts, the aging baby boomers. So it could be simple things like the taste and preferences. Nowadays, people prefer to read ebooks. People prefer to read ebooks. So if I am creating a new book, right? Do I want to publish in the e-format or do I want to publish in a hard copy version? That could be one aspect, right? Let's say now we have iPhones, right? iPhones came out the first model around 2009, 2010. So nowadays, right, people are using the buttonless, right, the touch screen design. So your phones are just a screen, and you just key in the keypad, right, on the screen. So there is no physical buttons. If we produce a phone with physical buttons now, would it still be popular amongst the people? Okay, would people still want to buy, or is it that it is no longer the trend? Okay, so these are the considerations here, right? So I'll just go through a few, right? Not going to go through everything. This one you can take a look. So we look at this question as an example. So here one sample, right, of a short answer question they can ask us. You are designing new shoes for an apparel company. Explain some possible factors that can affect the market. All right. So for this, okay. So here we are looking at a short answer question. So think of it as the 8 mark equivalent or even shorter. So explain some possible. First one is in terms of your social factor. For example, like people who purchase from Skechers. Okay, if you're familiar with Skechers, right? Skechers, they sell the sport shoes, right? The day-to-day wear shoes. It's comfortable, right? With the soft padding, the soles. Then also you have the slip-in function, right? If you see like some of the design, you can just slip in, you have to sit down and wear. So let's say now picture that this is Skechers. Okay, we're designing new shoes for this company. And then what are we considering when we design the shoes? So first one, if these people are very health conscious, they are healthy, they want to walk comfortably, right? They don't want something that will spoil the feet, then they may want something softer. Or let's say we are going after people who exercise a lot. Right? These people exercise a lot. So in that case, we may need the material to be durable, because if it's not, then shoes will be damaged very quickly. So if we have very hard shoes, or we have something that's very flimsy, right? When they do stretching, when they do running, it will damage. So what profile of consumers are we going after? Okay, so there's one, the social aspect. The other thing is we look at, let's say, the competition, the economics aspect. So in terms of competition, what are the current competitors already selling? So what are they offering the market that we can outdo or we can, let's say, modify? Okay, so I'm not sure if we talk about example with Amazon. So usually, let's say if you look at Amazon, right, if you go to the website to buy things, then people will leave reviews. Some will say that, oh, the size here is overstated. So I buy S, but it comes as a very large S, right? So it feels like M, it feels like L already, okay, even though it's a S size, a small size. So these are the comments, the feedback that people will leave on the website. So if let's say today I want to sell something that is already in the market, right? I want to sell something that people are already selling in the market. So how can I improve my products from there? What improvements can I make? So I can actually go and check the review. I'll see what the other customers are saying. Like for example, let's say they mentioned that the padding is not comfortable, or let's say they don't like the colors, the design, or let's say they want some certain modifications. So there will be a lot of these feedback suggestions in the reviews. And what we can do is we collect this, right? And then we can see what modifications to make. Okay, so in terms of your product design, we want to make sure that we are trying to fit the customer's needs as much as possible. Right? So we can see what they want and then just use these points to improve our products. So that would be what we can offer. So here, of course, this one you can add more points. Right? Let's say for point 3, okay? So we need about 3 points for this question, all right, because it's short answer. So what other possible factors can actually affect the market, right? So let's say things like your technology, right? Let's say technology. So we can mention technology. So what technology is available, right? Or let's say can be used to enhance the products. So maybe there are new technologies available. Like let's say the manufacturing technologies, it can help to produce faster. It can help to produce, make it more sturdy. You can add in this ingredient so that it becomes more durable, etc. So these are some of the points. No questions, then I'll move on. Okay, so other considerations for the product design, we look at things like the safety and liability. Okay, so this would be for cars, as you can see here. Let's say for vehicles, right? Certain items. Okay, let's say we look at shoes. Okay, we look at shoes. Let's say a normal sports shoe, right? A normal sports shoe versus let's say boots. Okay, BOOTS, right? Boots. So a normal sports shoe and a pair of boots, right? Let's say if, the soldiers what they wear, or let's say if you buy from, I can't remember this brand. Let's say if you buy from let's say some shops, right? They sell boots, very sturdy, very hard. So if you were to compare both kinds of shoes, right, the footwear, the normal canvas shoes or sports shoes can be used on a daily basis, right? Let's say I go running, I go jogging, walking, I can use sports shoe. I can also wear the boots, just a bit heavier. But let's say now if we want to do trekking, or let's say if the soldiers are undergoing training in the forest, right? They wouldn't be wearing the sports shoe. They wouldn't be wearing the normal canvas shoes, right? They will be wearing boots because it's more sturdy. So in this case, the boots are more sturdy. Then we touch on the concept of the safety and liability, right? How far, right, or how broad of a scenario are we looking at for the use of your products? So if you imagine, let's say the boots, right, we imagine that they will be used in more rugged terrains. So then compared to the canvas shoes, right, people will be wearing them to the jungles to do trekking on the mountains. So it has to be more sturdy. Okay, so that is one element to factor in. Let's say you look at the case with cameras, right? Cameras. A normal camera, or let's say even the phone camera, right? You can take photos. So in normal circumstances, day-to-day life, right? Day-to-day usage, you can take a photo. So safety liability is quite average here, right? Nothing much. But in the case of, let's say, someone going for extreme sports, let's say I go for diving. Let's say I like to jump down from the cliff, right, into the ocean, and I like to film myself. Can I still use the normal phone to actually do that? Probably no, right? I will have to use a GoPro, right? If you guys are familiar with a GoPro. So a GoPro here, it is suitable for such extreme conditions. People can use them in underwater, right? And then if I remember correctly, like there's a case or something. So it can get a bit dirty as well, right? But it's fine because you have the protection. And even if you go underwater, it's also waterproof, right? So you can use in such rugged terrains. So for the firms, right, they are producing the products. Not only do they have to consider, right, whether people will buy, what is the competition, what rules and regulations, we also have to consider things like the safety and liability. So are they using in more extreme conditions, or is it suited for like the day-to-day usage? Because if you are not, if you are using for the more extreme cases, there could be differences in terms of the cost. Leather boots, right, or to produce boots, the ones that the soldiers wear, the materials could be more expensive. It could be harder to get compared to, let's say, producing canvas shoes, right? So the cost will become different. Okay, so that would be another factor to consider. We also look at cultural differences. If you are familiar with McDonald's, right? We may have mentioned this. Okay, sometimes I forget now which class I mentioned to. But McDonald's itself operates around the world, right? In fact, like you have this indicator called the Big Mac Index, which tracks the purchasing power, the price differences of the Big Mac burger in different countries. So let's say now McDonald's, right? It operates in different countries. Then how does it adapt the products, the menu to suit the cultural differences? Okay, so for example, let's say in Singapore's case, right, the McDonald's, they have a different burger during National Day. Okay, so if you're familiar with the nasi lemak, let me show you the example, okay? So here, let's search for the nasi lemak. Okay, so it looks like that, all right? It looks like that. The original nasi lemak dish, okay, the original nasi lemak dish, this is a popular dish in Singapore, right? It looks like this. All right, if you can see my screen, it looks like this. And during National Day, okay, McDonald's actually adapted or adapts from this dish to create the burger. So the flavor is very similar, right? You can see that it looks roughly like the same color scheme and so on. The ingredients are about the same, right? As much as possible. The taste is about the same. So you remind people that, hey, we are celebrating National Day in August in Singapore. So celebrate with us, with McDonald's, right? We are coming back with a menu that is suited or created just for the Singapore market. So this is the menu. All right, you can see here, even not just the burger, we have other items that are also in line with what the Singaporeans like to eat, right? Things like bandung. Bandung is a rose syrup drink. So they change the drink instead of the usual Coca-Cola and so on, they change it to bandung. And then for the dessert, right, they have this chendol McFlurry. The chendol dessert on its own, right, it looks like that. Okay, so with this green topping and then like, if I'm not wrong, like coconut milk and so on. So they made it into a McFlurry, right? So the topping is still similar. Okay, so that is one example of how, right, the country or the company has actually adapted the products to suit the cultural differences. Then in Thailand's case, right, let's say you look at McDonald's in Thailand. So McDonald's in Thailand, right, you can see the mascot, right? This one, Royal McDonald, if I'm not wrong, right here is he's doing this hand gesture. So different countries, different culture, they will suit or they will adapt the product differently. So then coming back here, when we are designing the product, right, let's say in McDonald's case, they want to create something for the Singapore flavor, right, or the Singapore market. Then what can we tap into? How can we change our offerings? So it could be in terms of the mascot, right? You do a different hand gesture that is suitable for, let's say, the Thailand market. It can also be in terms of the physical product that people consume, right? The burgers are different, the drinks are different, the side dishes are different. So then that's also something that we can do. Okay, so for this part, just to summarize, right, whatever we've gone through, we have been looking at the factors to consider when we do a product design. Okay, so before we get into the production stage, we have to see, right, what are the different things to consider, how can they affect, modify, so that it can bring us the highest profitability. So this is what we have up till now. All right, so let's take a look here, right, in terms of the product design. So just to have a better idea.
In 2021, I quit my job to explore new opportunities as a creative. At the same time, my friends at GroveMade asked if I wanted to collaborate on designing a desk accessory product from scratch. In 2021, I quit my job to explore new opportunities as a creative. At the same time, my friends at GroveMade asked if I wanted to collaborate on designing a desk accessory product from scratch. I've never designed a physical product before, but I was up for the challenge. And now, 2 years later, it's finally here. Hello, I'm Matthew Encina, and in this video, I'll share the process of bringing a product to market. Before I begin, I want to thank Shopify for sponsoring this video. More on that later. Quick backstory. I'm a Los Angeles-based creative director who loves to build things and make content on productivity and creativity under my company, Mod Musings. GroveMade, based in Portland, is a high-quality desk accessory maker who shares my passion for improving the ways we work. They love my content, I love their products, and after years of working with each other, we finally decided to design something together. When it comes to developing a product, there's a process that is common across all design disciplines known as the double diamond. It's a series of iterative phases that alternate between expansive exploration followed by focused refinement. You begin by exploring what it could be, then define what it should be. From there, you develop and refine until you deliver your final product. I'll break this down so it's easy to understand. The first phase, discover. We explore the problem and observe with an open mind. For our project, Ken and Sean from the GroveMade team fly out to Los Angeles to study my environment and how I work. We did the same study with my mentor, Christo, and from both of these sessions, we quickly noticed some overlap and challenges when it comes to note-taking, a big part of our daily work. As a follow-up to these in-person interviews, we conduct a series of online surveys with GroveMade's email list. We ask questions to learn how people take notes, what their workflow and tools are, and what challenges they face. From all of these, we were able to make the following observations. First, taking notes is essential to our daily work, using notepads or whatever paper is on our desk. Second, we don't have a good way to store our notes, which usually leaves a mess on our desks or are hidden out of sight, out of mind. Third, people tend to keep important notes for 3 to 5 days while processing them. With these core insights and many more, we move on to the next phase, define. Here we make sense of our discoveries and focus on the right problem to solve. While the previous phase was all about expansive thinking, now we're narrowing things down till we have a clear design challenge. I fly out to Portland to review our insights with the GroveMade team. Here we kick things around and ask ourselves, what are the common insights and pain points? Does this seem like a big enough problem that others face? Are there already solutions on the market? And is this something we're excited about? After much discussion, we land on the following as a challenge we want to address. How can we design a better way to capture, review, and store notes? With a clear design challenge established, we move on to the next phase, develop. Here we go back into an expansive way of thinking, now exploring potential solutions. We continue to work remotely, running whiteboard sessions digitally in Miro. For a few weeks, we set time aside to sketch ideas, share research, and add to each other's work. For me, this is the fun part of the process because it's loose, fast, and it's exciting to see possibilities rather quickly. In Portland, Some of Sean's sketches include quick prototypes made of cardboard, old scraps, and 3D printing, which he sends to me for review. One unexpected challenge in this process comes up with the notepad paper stock, and we spend a few weeks trying to find the perfect thickness that would stand up on its own without feeling excessive like cardstock. This entire process takes several months of cycles to complete. We refine the ideas we like, test them out, then make adjustments to the form and function, dialing in the details of dimensions, angles, and materials. We settle on a direction that involves a set of tools that work together: an updated notepad size from a previous GroveMade design, a stand to hold notes, and a divider to store them. Now we move into the last phase of creating the product, deliver, the implementation of taking the prototype and turning it into a production model. This is the last part of the design process, and we're back into convergent thinking. We know what the solution is. Now the focus is building it the right way. This whole process takes months. It's largely out of my hands and now under the care of the implementation team at GroveMade. They finalize the sourcing of materials, develop how each piece will be made, and the processes for assembly, determining the cost to make each piece. This slightly influences the final design and price, but not by much, since Sean and Ken kept manufacturing in mind as we went through the earlier phases. After several months, GroveMade sends me the final product, which I'll give a detailed review of at the end of the video. As the implementation team at GroveMade is completing the manufacturing of the products, there's a few more things we have to take care of to get the product ready to sell: naming, messaging, and marketing. Naming is such a critical part of bringing a product to market, because it helps define its identity. For us, we have to name the individual products we've created, as well as the name of the collection, since they'll be sold individually and as a group. Our criteria are to fit within the naming conventions of other GroveMade products, communicate what it does, is nice to say and looks good when typeset, and uses words that are common in the market, but utilize any distinctions that set it apart. Just like the double diamond approach we use for design, we follow a similar approach here. We start by writing down whatever comes to mind, then curate the words and phrases we like. From there, we expand, researching words that carry the same meaning, then combine, edit, and try out sets of words together until we land on these: the note-taking kit, notepad, display rail, and vertical organizer. They might seem simple, but there's a lot of consideration into how they live in the current and future GroveMade lineup, and where they might appear when searching for these items online. With the names established, we move on to messaging. These are the core talking points to communicate the essence of the products. I take the lead on this because marketing and content is my area of expertise and what I bring to the collaboration. In this step, I try to keep the language clear and direct to answer the core questions we need to understand before marketing. What is the product? How does it work? Who is it designed for? And why is it valuable? Going back to our research and surveys, I put my head into the mind of our users, thinking of their pain points and goals when it comes to note-taking. The core messaging I land on is this: the note-taking kit is a set of tools to help you capture, review, and recall your notes, clear the clutter, organize your ideas, keep your tasks top of mind. Now that we know what we'll talk about, we move on to how we'll say it. The messaging translates into the copywriting on the website and packaging, as well as the story for videos and media we're creating to generate awareness and excitement for the product. Since GroveMade and I have spent years developing an audience on our respective channels, our marketing efforts will be focused here. I'll release a series of videos and posts on my YouTube and Instagram, and GroveMade will do the same on their accounts and email lists. This should create interest in our products and drive prospects to the GroveMade website, where they can learn more and purchase if they're interested. If you're considering making your product and building a business around it, it's never been easier. There's so much great information out there, production is accessible globally, and we have fantastic tools to run it all, like Shopify, the sponsor of today's video. Shopify is an all-in-one commerce platform that helps you easily open and manage a shop. After 2 years of design and development, I'm proud to share the note-taking kit by GroveMade and Mod Musings. What started as an exploration of the note-taking process resulted in a set of tools to help you capture, review, and recall your notes. The notepad features a dot grid pattern paper that allows you to capture your thoughts neatly, and the heavy base enables you to flip pages with just one hand, making it effortless to keep up with conversations and take note of what's important. With a display rail, you can keep your notes and devices upright and accessible, allowing you to review them quickly and keep tasks top of mind during your busy day. The vertical organizer helps you store and sort your notes until you're ready to recall them, keeping your workspace clean while still being able to access your notes whenever you need them. The note-taking kit is available in a few finishes, including maple with light gray felt, walnut with dark gray felt, and a limited Mod Musings edition in white oak and black leather to commemorate the collaboration. We designed the note-taking kit to help you clear the clutter, organize your thoughts, and keep your important tasks top of mind. Available now at grovemade.com. I took on this project to learn about product design and to explore a new side of my creativity. Collaborating with Grovemade has taught me so much, and I'm grateful to have them as a partner. There are so many more details that go into launching a product, but hopefully this video gives you an overview of the process and a glimpse of how much work it takes. If you have any questions, ask, and I'll do my best to answer.
Okay, so hope you enjoyed the video. So just to walk through the whole thing, right? So this one, we saw an example of how they were designing this note-taking kit. And it started with an idea. They saw a need to be addressed, and from there, they went to do research. They modify, and later on they launched the product, right? You even saw how they were marketing the product, let's say through the social media platforms. So in terms of, let's say, producing, right? In terms of, let's say look at the start. So in the first place, when we were designing the product, right, we can take two main approaches. So there is this first approach, right, where they focus on the customer's needs. Okay, so we are very centric on the consumer's needs. Is there a need that we can actually address that is not being addressed fully yet? Okay, so they saw that people are already taking notes, and they keep a lot of the pieces of paper, but it can become a clutter. It can take a lot of space sometimes, right? We want to solve this need of the consumers. On the other hand, the other approach is a more product-oriented approach. So when we are producing the item, we do not ask what the consumers what they require, but we simply just look at what we can produce. So we may be able to produce, let's say, an advanced stationery box. We will just produce it. We will throw in all the latest functions, nice finishings, nice design, and we launch into the market. So for both cases, we have produced something, but for case one, we were looking at what the customers want from the start. For case two, we were just looking at what our capability is, what we can produce, and we straight away produced without looking at the customer's perspective. Okay, so one is more customer-centric, the other one is more product-centric, right? Which one seems to be better, okay, or superior? Now, no right or wrong, right? In this case, you can say that for the product-centric, right, it is very focused on your own capabilities. So what can we produce? What are we able to use our resources, and we produce from there? So that is one perspective. On the other hand, let's say we do ask the customers about what they think, then we have the advantage of solving their needs, right? Because people don't actually buy products. Okay, so people don't actually buy products. They buy solutions to their problems. Today, I go and visit the doctor is because I'm sick. Today, I start exercising because I feel fat. I want to lose weight, right? I am not buying something for what it is, but whether it can solve my problem. So if you are able to adopt the customer-centric perspective, then we ask first what problems are they facing and where do we actually fit in, right? So if they're able to, we can know the problems they're facing and we can offer the solution, then they will be able to buy. Okay, so that's one part, right? Then subsequently, of course, along the way, they also mentioned how they were producing, they were refining again and again. Okay, so they understand the problem, and then later on, they were trying to build the prototype, and they were trying to keep adjusting, keep refining the product. So this is also a common thing, right? So you need not be okay with your first edition. You can keep modifying, keep editing before we are finally okay and we launch into the market itself. Just like, let's say, SpaceX, right? Look at the market for space travel. Okay, so if you're familiar with Tesla, Elon Musk, right? You would be familiar that he has also got another company which has to do with space travel, okay, SpaceX. So in that case, they are still in the exploration stage. We are not really launching this to everyone yet. Okay, it's something that's very drastic, very radical. So we want to keep modifying. We do a lot of experiments. We do a lot of dry runs, right? Just to see if the rocket can land on the outer space safely, whether it can return safely. So that is still undergoing the product design phase. Okay, so something to consider. Okay, no issues, let me just move on. Okay, Zoom class usually like no issues. So next part here, we look at the environmental aspects. Okay, so when we are something, okay, when we are producing something, we may also want to consider whether the design is suited for sustainability, whether the design is allowing us to conserve the environment. Okay, so the concept of, I think, let me see, we went through this. Okay, we haven't mentioned yet. Okay, so this one here. So for those who have done accounting, I saw some of you guys for accounting. So during accounting, we looked at the financial statements, specifically the income statement. So the income statement at the bottom, right, we have the net profit. Okay, we have the net profit. So the net profit is traditionally assumed to be the firm's main focus. So they want to see how much money they are earning. They want to see whether they are profitable if the profits are rising across the periods. So that is considered as a concern or the main concern for profit. We call this the bottom line, right? Because on the income statement, this is the last entry. But later on, as the firms developed, as they grew bigger and bigger, and as the mindsets and the perspectives of the consumers or other stakeholders change, the government comes in, or rather everyone, okay, everyone comes in, the different stakeholders, and they start to expect the firms to do something, not just to make money, but also for society and the environment as well. Okay, so if you are a bigger corporation, right, the expectations are higher because you have the financial resources, because you are bigger, right, you have more manpower, so you can actually do more things that benefit the society, okay, and also the planet. So then it gives rise to the other two elements, right? We have planet and also people. Okay, so you have profit, planet, and people, right? The three P's. So here, right, these three P's, they will represent the different aspects that the people expect the firms to care about. So instead of just one element, which is profit, which is the traditional bottom line, now the firms, right, are expected to look at other things, whether society is better because of their efforts, or because the environment has now become better because of their efforts. So we call this the triple bottom line concept. Okay, so the firm's concern shouldn't be about money alone. It should be about improving the lives of people and also the environment. So towards this, with a strong focus on environment sustainability, in terms of product design, we have to also factor this in. Okay, so we talk about this other concept on the circular economy. Okay, so in the traditional way of doing things, right, or in terms of production, it was the firms went through a linear economy. Okay, so this is what we see on the screen. So from the start, right, we take resources from nature, we extract resources, then we produce the items. Okay, so we produce, we manufacture, then we are going to sell to consumers who will consume, right? So we consume, then the packaging, the leftovers will become waste to be thrown away. So what happens here is that the resources are not used again. It is only being used one time. So they are taken from nature and then later on going through the different stages, they are ultimately thrown away or they may be consumed. So a simple example could be, let's say I buy a new iPhone, right? I buy a new iPhone. So they will use the natural resources like cobalt or whatever ingredients, right, to produce the iPhone. Then they will, after production, they will sell to consumers. So I take the iPhone, right? I buy from Apple, for example, and I start to use. And so the consumption period can be few years, right? Because if you are careful, the phone can last for a few years. So now, if you ask yourself, what happens to the packaging? We probably would throw it away. Like sometimes we keep it because the box looks nice. We want to just hold it for a while. But let's say when you're doing spring cleaning, right, we may tend to just throw it away, okay, because technically it's just empty box. So we throw it away. So the packaging becomes a waste, right, that is thrown away. Then what about the phone? Sometimes we may keep the phones, right? Let's say now 5 years later, 4 years later, I change to the latest model. So my previous phone, my previous iPhone, I will just keep it in the wardrobe, right, in the cupboard, because it has a lot of memories, because there are a lot of photos, data that I haven't transferred yet. But let's say now you fast forward another few more months, maybe you've already done the transfer. or by then you realize that you actually are not using that old phone as much as before. So then you may actually consider throwing it away. Of course, nowadays they collect the electronic waste, right? They have the bins and all that to collect, and then they recycle all these scrap metals. But let's say now you don't find the bins, all right? You don't purposely go and look for a bin to throw. You can just technically throw it in your dustbin. Right? So it becomes a waste. This is a scenario of a linear economy. So that everything is just used one time, the resources, it gets thrown away and then it just becomes waste. So to improve on this, right, to make it all more sustainable, we have this situation of a circular economy. Let me find another one that's more representative. Okay, here. All right. So in the case of, let's say, the circular economy, we see that it is not just taking, making, and disposing. You see on the right side, it goes back in a loop. So we use the resources, and then we produce the item, right? We produce the item. Once the consumers have finished their consumption, we may collect back all these items, all these products, and we recycle them. So the difference here is that we have this recycling component. Once you recycle, the parts, the resources, the materials can be used again. So now the resources can be recycled. You don't have to keep extracting from nature. It will impose less burden on the environment. Think of, let's say, global warming. It could be because we have chopped down so many trees. The plants, the trees are not there to help regulate the temperature. So if we are still able to reduce our reliance on these trees, these resources, then we can do our part for environment. So examples like H&M, and then take in the resources, which are the old clothes. So all these old clothes, they collect from people. So they have a bin in the stores that tell you, that encourage you to deposit your used clothes with them. So if you have old clothing you're not wearing anymore, you can just put it in the bin, and then they will use all this, they will extract the fabrics to make into new clothes. So this is a way to reduce the use in the environment. Then later on, we talk about another example with Philips. All right. So they want to keep for later. So let's say looking at H&M, right? They are not just producing clothes to sell, finish, right? Instead, they are taking an active approach to collect the old clothes, and they even use these materials, right? These fabrics to produce the new clothes. So all these have to be taught from the start, right? Because if we didn't plan for this, then we wouldn't have the machineries to take the fabric from the old clothes to manufacture into new ones. We wouldn't be able to, and we wouldn't have the campaign of getting people to donate the old clothes, right? Because if you didn't plan beforehand, then no one would know, and they wouldn't be giving out the old clothes or donating the old clothes, right? So that would be the difference here. Okay, so whether we want to continue the linear economy or whether the firms are progressing towards a more circular economy. So let's look at this. Okay, let's look at this before we take a short break.
Here's an idea. What if you never had to buy a light bulb again? Instead, you lease light, like you lease a car or an apartment. It's just one idea that's part of the circular economy. Before we can understand the circular economy, well, it helps to define the linear economy. Most organizations today operate in the linear economy, which is based on a take, make, and dispose model. So, for example, a light bulb company takes resources, like glass or metal, to manufacture its products. The company makes the bulb and sells it to a customer like me who uses it. Once the light bulb burns out, I dispose of it. It's likely neither the company nor I will ever see that light bulb again. For a light bulb company to make money in the linear economy, it tries to buy materials for the lowest cost possible and to sell as many bulbs as possible. This model operates as if there are infinite resources like glass or metal in the world. But you and I know that's not the case. That's why the circular economy treats materials like they're finite. A company in the circular economy doesn't just recycle products, but maintains ownership of them all along. So the model looks more like this: make, use, and return. Let's go back to the light bulb example. Instead of buying bulbs, this office in London leases its light from Philips Lighting. It signed a 15-year lease for the service and pays a fee each quarter. Philips still owns the actual light bulbs and provides maintenance and replacements when needed, no extra cost. This model gives Philips the incentive to produce energy-efficient light bulbs, and it saves the office money with fixed lighting costs. It's a radically different business model that makes companies more like service providers than sellers of a physical product. And it turns out lots of companies are looking for ways to get involved. Take H&M, one of the world's largest clothing retailers. It's working on a strategy to become 100% circular. The company collects old garments in its stores and recycles them. Since 2013, H&M says it has gathered more than 55,000 tons of fabric to reuse for new garments. Some governments are getting on board with the circular economy too. The European Union adopted an action plan in 2015 aiming to make supply chains, you guessed it, more circular. This includes everything from production to consumption, repair and manufacturing, and waste management. The point isn't just to become more green and create environmental benefits. There could be economic benefits too. One report estimated a shift toward the circular economy in the EU could increase GDP by an additional 12 percentage points by 2050. But moving from the linear economy to the circular economy also brings costs. Companies would need to redesign their supply chains and products in order for them to be used again and again. Manufacturers might be burdened when it comes to the actual logistics of disposing and recycling. A recent report found only 22% of UK companies are trying to generate value from products that are returned for reuse, recycling, or refurbishing. It's estimated the cost of transitioning to a fully efficient reuse and recycling system across Europe could be as much as 108 billion euros, roughly $130 billion. Cost is one thing. Changing people's mindsets is another. And that's what it'll take for the circular economy to go from an idea to reality for everyone.
So interesting, right? So you mentioned how companies are shifting towards a more circular economy approach, and they gave the examples of Philips and H&M, right? So H&M we have already covered just now. We talked about how they collect the old fabrics to make into new clothes. Okay, so that's one example. Second example is with Philips, right? So let's say Philips Lighting, it produces light bulbs, or it produced light bulbs in the past to sell. Okay, so one perspective is that it had to keep taking resources from nature, like they mentioned, glass and metal, to keep producing the light bulb, to keep selling, and then it will get thrown away when the light bulbs are damaged, right, or when it finishes its useful life. So the problem is the resources are not finite. So I have to find a way to actually keep recycling the resources. Okay, so then it led to a more circular economy approach, right? So their version or their way of doing it is, instead of just selling the light bulb, the ownership of the light bulb retains with the company. So Philips still owns the light bulbs, right? It is still theirs. So it didn't sell the light bulbs, but it's only renting out. So instead of the firms, right, or the customers having to buy the light bulbs and install themselves, they can actually rent out the light bulbs from Philips, have them installed, and if there's any problems along the way, we can still contact the service person from Philips to help us to repair. So in that sense, it has changed the business model. It has become more circular. That's one thing, right? You can save on the resources. Let's say after 2 years, right, this company or this customer doesn't need the light bulbs anymore, right? Let's say they are closing down this office. Let's say they are shifting to another location. The light bulbs can be removed and collected back. It can be used in another place again. Okay, so that's one. On the other hand, you can also use this chance to provide more services. Okay, so let's say from Philips' point of view, right? It used to just sell the light bulbs, finish. Now you can provide, let's say, as a service, it comes as a package. So when we sell you the light bulbs, let's say this amount of money or cost every month, right, or every quarter, then it will also include the fees of maintenance. So as long as you don't damage it intentionally or purposely, we come in here, we assess the situation, we can still help you to replace, help you to repair, right? All these could be already included in the cost itself. Okay, so that would help to market Philips as well, because now we're offering something different. Right? We offer you a fast-free approach. You don't have to install yourself. You don't have to replace yourself. We are doing everything for you. So it can be seen as a win-win approach, right? But of course, as the video mentioned just now, there will be high cost. There could be high cost involved, right? We want to help. We want to provide additional services like repairing, installation, etc. You will need more people, more staff. You will need people with the skills. So you may need to hire additional workers. That's one. right? And also, now you may need to factor in things like the transport costs. So if you're always getting the delivery people to go over to do the servicing and so on, then all these delivery costs will also add up, right? Compared to if you don't offer any maintenance services at all. So the customers just come and buy the light bulbs and that's the end, right? Could it be cheaper because you are saving on all these labor costs, all these transport costs? But on the other hand, if you look at the revenue itself, could it fetch the company higher revenue? Because now people may prefer this fast rate approach. It's like I pay a price and it includes everything, rather than having to still install ourselves, right? And then worrying about the light bulbs getting damaged sooner or later. So this is a more circular economy versus a linear economy approach. So the question could ask us about, let's say, explain about the triple bottom line, explain about the circular economy. It could get us to contrast with the linear economy, right? It can also give us a situation. So we want to take a more circular economy approach, right? How can the company design the product such that it can fulfill this approach, or it can actually satisfy this approach? So what can be incorporated, what can be added into your product design so that it is more environmentally friendly, so that it is more sustainable for the environment? Okay, welcome back. So just now earlier on, right, we looked at the concept of the circular flow. We saw how companies, right, are incorporating the circular economy, not circular flow, the circular economy into their designing, into their production, into the whole operations, okay, so that it helps with sustainability. It can also bring about higher profits depending on how you do it. So the machineries that you buy to use back all these old fabrics, for example, it could be expensive from the start, right? It could be a very expensive investment, but over time, right, it may pay for itself because you will be getting less from your suppliers. Right? So if you stretch over a longer period, this could actually be a cheaper business model. So those were some of the points. All right, so let's look at this. What are some benefits to incorporating the effects on the environment when designing or producing a product? Okay, so the benefits to this. So when designing products, firms may consider the impacts on the environment. Being environmentally friendly may include using biodegradable items or designing the supply chain for the circular economy. All right, so this is the intro. This portion here, again, not really worth any marks. Okay, but if we are not going to explain well below, then this will give us the extra 1 mark. Okay, so here this is just a brief introduction to our topic. Then point one benefit is that the brand image can be enhanced. Okay, so when we talk about sustainability, or if you look at the bigger term, right, you may have heard of this term called the corporate social responsibility. Okay, so CSR, or corporate social responsibility, this is linked to the triple bottom line. So the stakeholders like consumers, let's say the government, or even the suppliers and so on, they expect the business, the firm, to be practicing sustainable methods, to be socially responsible. So it helps improve the lives of people. It helps to provide products that's environmentally friendly. So with this, if we are practicing these methods, if we are doing this way, it can help with your brand image, because this is fulfilling what the stakeholders want. Right? So giving the people what they want, we are satisfying them. People see that, hey, this firm, right, it is sustainable, it is socially friendly, socially ethical, so we will continue doing business with this business. So these are some of the benefits. So the brand image can be enhanced. Second one, we can actually generate savings. This was mentioned just now already. Okay, so give you an example. Let's say for CSR, right? We look at the case with Apple. Apple here, they produce the items, right? They also hire a lot of staff. Okay, so a lot of workers. So if you look at the context of US, they are quite diverse in the background. You have the whites, you have the African Americans, you have Asians, right? You have the minority groups as well. So Apple, in terms of its hiring, right, it has made a commitment to be more equitable in the hiring so that it doesn't discriminate against any particular groups, right? It wants to have a more inclusive workplace. Okay, so that is one example of the CSR in practice, right? It doesn't have to be just about environment. It can also be about the social aspect, like hiring responsibly, hiring more inclusively, right? All these are also considered. Okay, next portion. Now, next portion here, we talk about standardization and customization. Okay, so when we produce something, we also will be considering or will be addressing the issue of whether it is a customized product or it is a standardized product, right? So you can see here, if we start with standardization, this is the extent to which there is absence of variety in the product, service, or process. So let's say I want to shop for some new clothing, right? I want to find new clothes to wear for work. So I go to Uniqlo, right? Or I go to H&M and I can shop the selection offered there, all right? So when I see the shirts, or let's say any outfits, this will be very similar, almost the same, almost identical, right? Maybe there are some little defects here and there, but by and large, they could be like 99% identical. So I could buy this blue shirt in this outlet. I can go to another outlet of H&M or Uniqlo and I buy the same design. The two shirts will look the same, right? The two shirts will look identical because they are produced with standardization in mind. Okay, so it is made the same. There is no variety. Like, let's say for the same color, okay? Or let's say if you look at this whole range of the products, right? There could be some little variations, like the colors could be different and so on, right? But let's say we ignore all those. We look at just, let's say that one item, right? The white shirt or let's say the blue shirt. That itself is standardized. So we produce in bulk, right? Everyone who wears that same outfit, they will look the same, right? Because it's the same shirt. Okay, so standardization, there is no variation. They are producing the same thing over and over again. We are not taking into consideration the requests of the customers. You just buy if you want to buy. If not, we are selling the same thing. On the other hand, we have customization. Okay, never mind. So we have customization. So standardization is on one side. On the other end of the spectrum, we have customization. Let's say today I want to have a new suit, right? I have a friend's wedding coming up. So I may want to prepare earlier, but I don't know what to buy, right? I don't want to buy something off the rack because it may not suit my body shape, it may not suit my figure exactly. So I want something customized, tailor-made. So I go to the tailor, then he takes my measurements, right? He may ask for my preferences, what color, what materials, what designs do you like? And from there, we produce. So this shirt, for me, it takes into account my sizes, my measurements. So when I wear it, right, it will look presentable. It will look very sharp. So that is an example of customized product. It's just made for me. Or another example, we go to a bakery, right? Let's say some of the fanciful cake shops. Right, the fanciful cake shops. If you have heard of Baker's Brew, right? Baker's Brew, they sell very nice, very nicely designed cakes. Okay, let me show you. Okay, so you may have seen this around Singapore. They have quite a few outlets, right? Quite popular. So they have the standardized ones, right? You see here, like all these are the flavors. Let's say tiramisu, right? Let's say tiramisu. Then let's say, for example, salty matcha, right? Salted vanilla and so on, right? Now I'm hungry. So these are the standardized ones. You go to any shop, right? They will sell you all these flavors. Okay, you can also choose to customize, right? Let's say here you can customize. So customize one, of course, they look different. You have all these very fanciful designs. People may want it, right? But not everyone wants it, right? Like this design may not be suitable because it's too fanciful. You cannot be producing like 100 pieces and only 2 people want to buy. Right, it's very elaborate. It may be serving a very particular niche. Let's say this one, the old folks may like it, right? More traditional looking. Let's say this kind as well, right? Then let's say for this, right, if I'm not a car person, then I wouldn't like this design. So you can choose to customize the cakes also. Okay, so this is an example. But let's say we are exploring the pros and cons of both, right? Let's say for standardization, what are some of the pros and cons or benefits and problems, right? You can see here, like standardized products, they are immediately available. So I visit any Baker's Brew outlet, right? I go to the shop. I want to buy a cake for someone's birthday, right? I can just pick this off the shelf. It is already available, unless of course it is out of stock, right? But that situation aside, it is already available. We can just straight away pick it off and then just bring it to the party. So this is for standardized product. At the same time also, because it is standardized, it is already being mass produced, the cost would be lower. Okay, so we have this concept of the economies of scale. I think we mentioned before. So you have this concept of economies of scale. Okay, economies of scale. Right? So this is a situation where we experience falling average cost. Okay, so let's say to produce one cake, it could cost the company, let's say $20, right? For the time, the manpower, the ingredients. Of course, they will sell it for profit. But let's say now we produce in bulk. So instead of one chef, right, doing the whole cake from start to the end, we can hire many chefs and they just do one part of the whole process. Let's say this group of chefs, right, they will be responsible for doing the end touch, the finishing touch, right? So they smear the cream, the whipped cream onto the finished cake. Another group could be doing the earlier preparation. So they prepare the ingredients, right? And then they do the earlier stage, they put into the oven. So you have different groups. They only do one part of the whole process. It will allow them to specialize, right? If you're only doing one thing every day, over time you become so good at it, right? Because you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're not spreading yourself thin. You're not doing this and that, this and that. If you keep repeating, you become so good. So then this firm here can experience economies of scale because they are producing in bulk. They can hire more workers. They can get more equipments that are specially for certain processes. It will help to reduce the overall cost. Okay, so first benefit, it is already available now. Second benefit, it could be that the cost of production is now lower with higher productivity in place. Okay, so these are some benefits, right? But the problem, right, the problem could be that it has nothing special. Okay, so we look at the cakes that they offer, right? These are the flavors. So let's say I like the salty matcha. So then here also have, there also have. So all the outlets are selling the same flavors. If I bring this to my friend, and this is, let's say, a very formal, a very extravagant event, right? I bring this cake over, it may seem a bit petty because like, the budget for this event could be like 6 figures, right? And you bring this cake over that is so simple, right? Nothing fanciful, then it doesn't show your sincerity, for example. So then in that case, we will have to customize. Okay, so we'll talk about that later, right? So standardization, there is a lack of variety. It's not different, right? Everyone's wearing the same shirt. Everyone's getting the same cake. So it's just very similar, very dull. And also, right, if you do not standardize, you are creating a chance for the competitor to do a better job, right? So for some companies, they can keep producing the same thing again and again and again. They do not innovate. They do not offer variety. They do not make changes. So if they're happy with the current situation, the status quo, then other companies can see, hey, customers' needs are not met fully. We can actually come in and serve them differently. So you have the case where, let's say some people like tailor-made suits. Some people just want to buy off the rack because it's cheaper, right? You have different needs. Some people have the budget, they want to look sharper. They may be wearing suits every day. Let's say I'm a businessman. Let's say I'm doing sales. I will be wearing this every day. So it makes sense for me to buy something customized so that I look sharp, right? Don't have something too baggy, too flimsy. So if you only sell, let's say, the standardized shirts, then it doesn't help with the customers, or it doesn't fulfill those needs where they are looking for something different from the rest. Okay, so that's the problem with standardization. All right, so you may need to know some of these points, right? Again, the questions. So next part, if we contrast with customization, right? Customization is where you are doing that product. It can be for that one customer only. So let's say for the case of the cake, right? Let's say now I want to do this cake. So this one is not even customization to the extreme end, right? Because they still give you some, they already give you these pre-made selections. So instead of, okay, never mind. So let's say now I want something special, right? I don't want to buy off the rack, off the shelf cakes. I want something different. So I can choose from this list, right? You see, even so fanciful, even the Panadol design, right? Don't know how they do that. A Panadol design. So we can choose from here, right, a curry puff design. So then once you're okay, you can go and make it. You place your order, they will do for you. But if you want to take this up another level, you can even choose, let's say, the color. You can even choose the design. You can really come up with the design yourself. Let's say the tailor, right? I want to have this burgundy shirt, suit. And then I want to have 2 pockets. I want to have how many buttons? I want the buttons to be what design, right? I want the measurement of my sleeve to be how many cm. So all this you can actually request, and it will make the suit really customized, personalized for you. Because it's not just even choosing from the menu, right? This one you can choose, oh, I want this. They still consider this as customized, even though they just let you choose all these designs that they have already come up with. But I want to start from scratch. They take the measurements from my suit, and then what are my waist size, my shoulder size, and then I can request a bit more room, right? The one so tight, or let's say what colors and so on. So I can choose all this. It becomes a very customized product. So what is so good about a customized product, right? So it's the opposite of the standardization. Okay, so whatever you see with standardization, right, the benefits becomes the problems of customization. The problems of standardization will be the benefits of customization. Let's say today, standardized products are immediately available. On the other hand, for customization, if you make a suit today, it will not be ready today, right? They need time to produce, to sew, to put together everything to make the suit. So they'll ask you to come back in a few days' time or 1 or 2 weeks' time, right? So that is not available already. And for standardized product, the cost of production will be lowered because you are producing in bulk. But for customized products, the cost will be higher because they are producing just for you. Just like let's say with let's say look at luxury brands, right? Let's say you look at LV bag. So with the luxury handbags, right? Why is it costing so expensive? Because the labor cost is very high. So apart from using good quality leather, for example, the workers, right? The artists, they are sewing, they are doing everything from scratch, man-made, right? And they are doing very carefully, very detailed. So that's why it warrants that $4,000, $5,000 and above for that bag. On the other hand, right, for standardization, because it is something that we keep producing, right, you are not really focusing on the details, it will be cheaper. So with standardization, it's more expensive, more time spent, higher level of expertise required because that person is producing everything from scratch and just to fit your needs, right? So they have to see what you want and based on their skills, right, produce exactly what you requested. So the opposite. Just now we didn't talk about this, right? So we said that for standardization, the cost to train the employees will be lower, okay, because you don't need to do so many things. Today, for example, we are only offering one flavor of the cake. Okay, let's say if you look at Baker's Brew example, let's say now we only produce these classic cakes. Okay, these are considered like the standardized ones. Let's say this vanilla cake. Okay, let's say these two, right? So we keep producing these flavors. We don't need that much skills, right? You could be a basic culinary chef, or a basic pastry chef. So they just know the basics. They can assemble the pieces. They can do up this nice cake. That's about it, right? We don't need fanciful designs. We don't need to have all these nice decorations, right? This is just a basic level of skills required. So if you're doing standardization, one benefit, right, is that your machineries, you don't need so many because you are just doing that few products. You don't need so many people. You don't need the high skilled labor because you are not getting more out of them, right? They just need to deliver a basic level of product. but with customization, you're allowing for changes, you're allowing for variations. So today someone comes in, they want to produce, okay, they want to order, let's say they want to order this Panadol cake. They may want to have more pieces around, not just this few. They may want to change the color of the packaging. They may want to add in something else, right? Maybe they don't want this box to look intact, right? Like a brand new box. They want this box to look like it has been torn off. That means someone has already opened up and taken some pills inside. So if I request like that, then are you able to deliver? So if you can make such changes, that means your skills levels must be higher, right? Because you allow me to make all these modifications. So in terms of skill sets required, it's going to be higher. And then it will come to the training. So in terms of training, if you need more skills from the people, you may need to train them. So that will be incurring things like the time and the cost as well. So that will be an issue, right? Let's say for customization, because in terms of timing, in terms of costing, it's also going to be higher. All right, so some considerations. Okay, so in another scenario, we may also bring both elements together. You may have the case of mass customization. That means in the first stages of production, we mostly produce the same things, but we are going to leave, let's say, a second later stages for customers to choose. Okay, so you allow some customization, but within a more limited scope. For example, let's say a furniture shop. They can produce the main structure of the sofa. They can produce everything almost ready, but they let the customers choose the color of their sofa, right? Or they let them choose what are the fabrics that you want to use. That's about it. So we only let you choose two things, the colors and the fabric. So then once we take your orders, we'll now start to bring the whole piece together. So in the first place, the whole structure, the sofa it just look like that, right? 3-seater, 2-seater, L shape. But we let you choose the color. We let you choose what materials you want. Do you want leather? Do you want other fabrics, right? Offering some choices such that you offer a bit of variety, but it's not to the extreme end where you really allow the customers to build the whole sofa from scratch. Okay, so give you another example here, right? This one, the case with the chocolates, all right, or the candies.
Papaya cubes sprinkled with hemp leaves. Candied lilac with gold dust. Wasabi nuts with chilies and orange pepper. Each an individual and only a fraction of the estimated 27 billion combinations that customers of the Berlin company Schokri can design themselves.
Kunden, die einfach mal was ausprobieren wollen.
We have a lot of clients who simply want to try things out. We have those who put some kind of horrible combination together and see if they can take it. But that's what's so nice about this. The basic ingredient is always chocolate. Even when someone puts together a really awful combination, the chocolate flavor is still there.
2.5 years ago, the startup began selling organic chocolate online that you can design yourself. Customers have 80 choices of toppings to put on 4 types of chocolate. In this case, necessity truly was the mother of invention.
At the time, we were desperate to come up with a gift idea. It was Sunday night. We'd worked with chocolate before, so we put together the first Chokri as an emergency present. It was so well received that it gave us the idea for a business.
At first, just 2 people ran it. Today, the company has 50 employees working in shifts to produce 100-gram chocolate slabs made to order. Every piece is created by hand and delivered by post. Orders come in from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Recently, they developed a line specifically targeted to the U.S.
Auch permanent überrumpelt.
We've been overwhelmed with sales and have had to constantly increase our capacity. We're finally at a point where we can cover the demand to some extent.
Foods you can put together yourself, such as muesli, liqueur, or tea blends, are all the rage. The term is mass customization. It refers to mass products that you can customize for yourself at affordable prices. The same thing is happening in clothing, be it individualized bags, shoes, or dresses. Berlin alone boasts around 30 firms offering mass customization.
Individual products have boomed here in the last couple of years. We have individual lifestyles, individual ways of working. Our society has become more multicultural, and with that comes the desire to have unique products. We know what's possible and are less willing to compromise.
Can also create their own perfume online and have it mixed in a lab. An award-winning Berlin company called My Parfum began offering the service 2 years ago.
scents.
Aqua,
There's aqua,
Mott,
bergamot,
Zitrone,
lemon, or lily of the valley, orange, mandarin, peach, apple, jasmine, rose, ylang ylang,
Rose,
geranium,
Ylang,
musk,
Geranie,
sandalwood.
Sandelholz.
At the heart of the firm is the virtual fragrance designer. It's programmed to recommend scent combinations and help users make their own perfumes.
Die Herausforderung lag darin,
The challenge was to develop a website on which you can create your own fragrance without actually being able to smell it beforehand.
so geregelt,
We got around this by working a lot with images, with descriptions, and with our clients' memories.
One can select not only the scent, but also the bottle shape, name, and color of the fragrance. Those unhappy with the end result even get their money back. It's a concept My Parfum's creators hope will help them conquer the US market.
So we showed two examples, right, of mass customization. So first one was the chocolate dessert, right, or the snack. So it allows the customers to do some customization of their toppings. You can choose from so many flavors, right? You can put nuts or whatever. Then it could turn out nice, right? It could turn out like to be a bit not as nice, right? Depending on what you combine with. So that is something that customers can choose. But the basic thing, as they say in the video, is that it is still chocolate. So it's still chocolate, just that the toppings are different. Okay. Then the second example would be, let's say, perfume, right? They allow the customers to choose their own scents. So the elements, the ingredients are already produced, right? So let's say the flavor, the smell, such as they mentioned peach, apple, right? All these are already produced. Now we just need to mix them together so that it becomes one unique scent. We let the customers choose. We also give them advice and suggestions. So if it turns out to be quite a bad smell, then they also allow for refunds, right? So these are the examples of the mass customization. Of course, on the back end, right? If you are offering more variety, there are more things to prepare, right? If I'm offering like 27 flavors or 27 or over, let's say, 30 ingredients for you to mix and match, right? Let's say for the chocolate example, they have to prepare like 30 over ingredients. Okay, and the problem comes because you may not know exactly the demand for each of these topping. So it becomes important to do the forecasting because sometimes you may feel that okay, people like let's say they like almond, but there could be recent news that comes out about almond that says that it is healthy and more people want to eat. Or like something comes up that says that, oh, if you eat more beans, right, you can get cancer. So then people will start to reduce the demand for beans. So in that case, the sales, right, or the demand for each of these topping is not the same. It becomes more cumbersome to do forecasting for each of them. And also the cost is higher because you have to buy them in bulk. If you just buy each type of topping a bit here, a bit there, you will not be receiving the bulk discounts from the suppliers. Compared to if you are just buying that 1-2 types of toppings, but because it's bought in mass, then the suppliers can give you some bulk discounts, right? That could actually reduce your cost instead. Okay, so with mass customization, the trade-off, right, for higher quality is that there could be higher cost. There could also be like a lack of the forecast, right? It also requires more prep on your side. So these are some trade-off. Another example, right, if you need to, it's Subway. Subway, they produce the bread, they have all the ingredients, the sauces, all available. Once you go into the shop, right, they will ask you for what sandwich you want, what is the bread type you want, and then they ask you for what you want for today, right? It could be egg mayonnaise, it could be let's say a chicken meat, right? And so on. So you can choose what to put inside, what sauces, what vegetables, right? And then later on when you choose your cookie, right, you can also choose the flavor. So that set meal itself becomes customized. Okay, so it's not like I go to McDonald's, I order a filet-o-fish meal, the side dish, the fries, the drinks, everything is more or less quite similar, right, to what other people are buying. But when I get my Subway meal, it's probably going to be different. It's also customized and compared to what other people are getting. So this is the example here with the mass customization. So here, let's look at the question. So you see mass customization. Another name that it goes by is delayed differentiation. How it gets its name here is that the differentiation comes at the later stage. Okay, so in the initial stage, right, let's say the sofa, they are built with the same structure. Or let's say the chocolates, right? The chocolate bars are all made the same. It's only later on when we get the customers to choose the toppings, then the difference will occur. So we call this delayed differentiation. So it allows an increase in customer satisfaction. What are some challenges with this approach? So if we practice delayed differentiation, then what are some problems that we face? So for the first part, we did the definition. We didn't quite complete the whole product. We give some room for the customers to make their own choices, for them to customize based on their needs. Then what are some problems? First thing, right, it allows them to customize. Let's say here they use the example of the chocolate bars. Okay. Then after that, wait. This one here, okay, they mentioned challenges, right? Okay, let me just add on here. Allowing them to raise the customer satisfaction, then however, also applies offering more variation for ingredients. Okay, so this part wasn't done yet. Okay, so we talk about the example of the chocolate bars, right? Their own snacks. So on the good side is that there is more variety. On the bad side, because the question here talks about the challenges, is that you may need to have more ingredients. Okay, so we want to satisfy our customers, right? So we let them choose. It cannot be just, let's say Subway, right? If you go into Subway, they say, oh, we let you customize, but there's only tomatoes, lettuce, and let's say pickles, only 3 types. Then it will feel quite boring, right? You'll feel like, a lot of the vegetables that I want isn't really there. Then what sort of customization are you allowing me, right? So if you want to offer customization, it has to be something that can wow the customers, right? So then we offer a wider selection of vegetables. We offer more sauces. We offer more flavors, right? So in this case, if the more you offer, the more things to prepare, the higher the cost to the business itself. Okay, so that is one challenge. Second thing here is in terms of your forecasting. Okay, so here it says that there could be some errors in the forecasting. We may not be aware of exactly how much the demand for each topping is. So some customers, they may prefer, or a lot of customers may prefer, let's say, walnut. So everyone is using walnut in the topping. Then later on, right, as we get the next customer, they also request for walnut, and now we have finished our supply of walnut. Right, we need to reorder again. So in the interim, you may disappoint some customers because you don't have the ingredients that they want, right? Or they need to wait before they place their order. So they will not be as satisfied as you would like them to be. Right, so the issue here, again, as we said, is with forecasting the demand for all your variations, especially if it's on demand, right? Let's say for some of the toppings, people like a lot. Or let's say for the perfume example, right? Some smell, some scents are more popular. Like people could choose apple, or some people really don't like Earl Grey, for example. So if everyone is choosing apple and no one is choosing Earl Grey, there will be an oversupply, right? There will be a huge excess amount of the Earl Grey scent in the inventory. There will be a shortage of the apple smell. Then for those who still want to order apple smell, so this will be the more variations we offer again, the more challenges we face because there are more things to forecast. Okay. All right, next part. So the next portion here, last portion. So the next portion here talks about the product life cycle. Okay, so it talks about the product life cycle. So generally, products will go through these different stages. We plot the demand. You can also think of the demand here as sales. So we plot the demand of sales against time. Okay, so we have the introduction stage, right? The introduction stage is where we just launch the product, right? We introduce into the market. And then the growth is where people start to realize, hey, this is something that we want, something that we can use. Then we start to have more and more. Then it starts to be growth. And later on, we come to the maturity stage where the sales may have already peaked, right? And then the declining stage where sales is starting to drop. So using the case of Apple, right? Let's say iPhones. When it first launched, the marketing could be very strong. So I remember there were people queuing up for the iPhone 3, right? When it first launched. So everyone was trying to get their hands on one model, right? So just queuing, buying. So in the introduction stage, it very quickly went to the growth stage, right? So there was very little time that they stayed in the introduction because the sales picked up very fast. past. And for many years, iPhones generally, they have been around these stages. If you look at the previous, let's say the income statement, right, for Apple, you will notice that for many years, maybe for almost a decade, every year, Apple actually experienced a growth, right, in their sales, in their revenue from iPhones. Okay, so in the initial stage, from year 1 to year 2, for example, there could be a 15% increase in the revenue, right, very high. Year 2 to year 3, there could be another 15%. Then it starts to taper off, right? It starts to taper off. It starts to come to the maturity stage where sales it has reached its peak, right? The highest level. Then it starts to decline. So in the recent years, right, Apple has reported falling demand, falling revenue from the iPhones. That becomes a worrying trend because now the product is seen as facing more competition, probably. It may be seen as reaching its peak in terms of popularity. So if you are launching a new phone every year, chances are people may not be switching to the new phones every year. Some people, maybe just nice, this year their phone is now damaged, right? Or they have bought the previous phone for 5 years. So this is the year that they change to a new phone, right? So we are probably just tapping into this group, right? They are changing their phones, and not everyone who is rushing to change into a new phone every single year. So then they would come to the decline stage. So these are the 4 stages of the products. So why talk about this? Because if you're looking at a product, right, let's say a tangible item, it will probably go through these few stages. And we want to see which stage it is in so that the firm can make some adjustments. Let's say they were in the growth and the maturity stages, right? It will be likely that you can ramp up your production. So we continue to produce more. We anticipate higher and higher demand, or at least a stable level. If it's in the declining stage, the firm itself may apply this thing called the extension strategy. So extension means you prolong. So instead of letting your product go into the decline stage, right, that means it drops off the cliff, we want to prolong the maturity stage. So is there something that we can do, right, that make people continue to buy so that they don't reduce their demand for the product so quickly? Okay, so we recognize that the fall in demand, the fall in the popularity of the product, it may come sooner or later, right? It is inevitable. But if you can choose, right, later is better than earlier, right? At least let us earn a few more years of money before the demand drops for this product. Okay, so we can do more marketing. We can enhance the product design. Like let's say recent years, if you look at the case of Samsung and Apple every year they sort of like pit against each other. iPhone, right? You start off iPhone 3, 4, and so on, and then subsequently they launch an iPhone Pro, iPhone Plus, right? And then to serve the needs of those who are more budget constrained, they launched the iPhone SE. Right, I think it's a cheaper version, like a few $100s, but the functions may be more simpler as well. So they have all this. Then for Samsung, every year they launch the S series, the premium series, right? Then they have the S Plus, I think it's a bigger model. They also have the Note series. The Note series will come with the stylus, right? The pen to write on the screen. So these are more or less the same thing. So if we want to do an extension strategy, or if we want to make ourselves different, right, we have to offer something that is different from the past and also from your competitors. So like recent years, Samsung, if you follow Samsung's products, they have this foldable phone, right? So the phone can be folded. So you can open up into a much bigger screen, but you can actually fold it so that it will close at the middle. It will bend at the middle, and then it will be a smaller, more compact design. Of course, without any buttons, okay. So it's still a touch screen design. So that will be different, right? Because for many years it has just been like a rectangular shape. And now you allow people to fold and unfold, right? Fold and open up the screen so that it can be a bigger screen. It also looks nicer, right? When you fold and then you can keep in your pocket. So there may be a need to make such adjustments so that your products continue to appeal to the people. So these are the different stages that we go through, and there could be different needs and requirements from the company itself. Okay, any questions you have, let me know, huh? All right. So Here they mention as well things like the design improvements, right, to get higher demand and so on. Okay, so do take a look here. Let me see if I missed out any questions from just now. Okay, so we didn't talk about this, right? Let's just talk about this first. So what possible strategies can a company relying on standardization of products pursue? So we are doing standardization. So something like Uniqlo, right? They mass produce the shirts, the outfits, and what strategies can they pursue? So we said things like low cost. Okay, so low cost here can be that you take advantage of your economies of scale, and then we offer lower prices to the customers, and they will come and buy from us. So that could be one. Then they also mention like sustainability approach. Any products that are overpriced will now be likely sold off since future customers will be buying the same products, leading to less wastage. So if you are doing standardization, right, you can pursue lower costs, you get the materials from suppliers more cheaply, you reduce your price. You can also try to see if there are ways for you to reuse your materials, because the same ingredients, the same fabrics, the same materials will be used again and again. So if you can redesign your production such that it is more sustainable, such that it is more of a circular economy approach, then people, you may be cutting down on the use of resources. You may also be more sustainable as a result. Okay. Okay, losing my voice. So just to recap everything, right? We talked about product and services design. We looked at the factors that the firms, right, they have to consider before the production. Okay, so I want to come up with a new product, right? How do we go about doing it? Do we think about the consumer's needs first? Do we think about our own production capabilities first, right? So from different approaches. And apart from those, right, what are the things to consider? Things like the competition, things like the needs, the taste and preferences, things like the technology available, etc. Okay, so this one, please do take a look at the list so that you are able to explain some of them in the answers. Okay, because this could come out for essays. All right. Then later on, we looked at the approach of the circular economy. We want to transit away from a linear economy where it's just taking resources, producing, consumption, and then throwing away. We want to reuse the materials so that they can go through a second round of production, a third round of production. So the materials that you use, right, can be reused and recycled again. So that will lead to less stress on the environment. Then can we actually redesign our business model? Can we actually redesign our operations such that it can be more sustainable? So that is the topic here. We look at the examples of H&M. We looked at the case of Philips, right? Instead of selling light bulbs, it offers lighting services. Then later on, we talked about standardization, right? In terms of your production, are we focusing on standardization or are we focusing on customization? Standardization, all your products look identical. It could be cheaper. It could require less from your workers. It can be faster. For customization, it will be a higher quality. It will fit the needs of your customers more, but it's going to be more expensive, takes a longer time to produce, and you require more skills from your workers. That will come at a higher cost. All right, so which one are we doing, right? What is your overall strategy for the business? All right. Then subsequently, we talked about mass customization. So we bring both together. You have some parts of standardization where the production in the earlier stages could be the same, right? Then to a certain point, we allow customers to make some adjustments. They can choose their toppings, they can choose their flavors, they can choose what ingredients to go into the items, right? So some customization as well. So the pros and cons we have talked about, right, in the questions. Then the last part to do with the product life cycle, introducing the different stages that the products go through. So when they are first launched, how would the demand be like? How would the sales be like? So it slowly starts to pick up, and then later on it gets into a peak level and it starts to taper off, right? Going into the decline stage. So at different stages, the characteristics of the products may be different. The requirements of the business may be different as well, because you may need to market more, or you may need to redesign your product, or everything is okay, nothing much to be done at this stage, right? So different things to take note of, different strategies to apply, different pros and cons for each stage. Okay, all right. Meanwhile, have a good rest. Be well prepared. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Okay, bye bye.